Good morning. Good morning. Oh, wow. Good morning. Good morning. Like on TV. So this is our last presentation of the outdoor hospitality. We are looking at some really fun things, private outdoor facilities on private land in great locations. A lot of things you might want to do, and you have an expert who is doing consulting, and then we have our speaker introduction by Margaret.
Yeah. Quick. Okay, first of all, I just want to officially, as we wrap this up, thank you all for participating both in the homework assignments and in your questions and in your U-hour participation, because this was an experiment and you guys were kind of our test cases, and I think we're doing pretty good. So I appreciate all your participation. Couple things. The assignment on the special events, which you guys finished last week after going on the field trip, I'm in the process of collecting those and organizing those and then sending them off to Bonanelli Park. And then, and I know there was a question on there is that if you are interested in assisting them, if they select one of these guys, would you be interested in helping them? I think the next steps will probably come from Bonelli if they are interested. So that's kind of where that one sits. I know you also had a homework assignment for this class, for this actual session. We'll be looking at those and getting those to Todd. And then there's a survey that I think, when's the survey due?
Monday by noon.
Monday by noon. That's a series on the whole outdoor lecture. That's a survey on the whole outdoor lecture series. And I actually didn't put a question on it. I may add one. I'll do that today about anything else you want to tell us. But it's really important that you do that, obviously, because it's an assignment. But it's going to help us understand what worked in this lecture series, what was really popular. And that's going to help because Jake, as he works with Margie and the other professors, is going to try to figure out how we can incorporate more lecture series of maybe different industries. And so that feedback is really important. And then last thing I just want to say is, again, thank you for embracing this. And at the very end, Todd's going to take you through an exercise, and it's all about why you do what you do. And I wasn't sure how you all would respond to this kind of lecture series. And this industry is important to me. It's made me very happy. It's challenged me. And so I just thank you for being part of that journey and being open to looking at it. And then the last thing I would say is on that survey, there is a question of, are you interested in working in the outdoor hospitality industry for potentially some of these employers you came and visited? And if you are, give me your email. And probably what we're going to do on that is, depending upon how many students respond to that, we're going to probably set up a mentoring pool. But the important thing to know is that most of those jobs don't come onto the market until January or February. So the fact that we would spend, let's say, December kind of getting you ready, but not actually start applying for the jobs until January, February, you're not behind. You're actually in a really good time frame. So if you don't hear from me about you saying yes to being interested, it's not because I've forgotten, because I never forget stuff like that. It's just that we may pace it because you really need to be prepared in the beginning of the new year. So with that, I want to introduce my professional colleague, Todd Wynne-Parry. I met Todd about, I think now 4 years ago. I was working on an assignment for the National Park Service. They were looking at the future of the outdoor hospitality industry and camping in the US. And I wanted to understand what's going on in the private sector outdoor hospitality industry. And if you recall that first assignment I gave you about the outdoor hospitality industry, there was that column on the far right about private companies developing private properties on private land. Todd is the man who's been advising a lot of those companies. And so that's what he's going to be talking about. And when I reached out to Todd 4 years ago and said, hey, I want to know about AutoCamp, I met him, I got to know him. He's been a great professional colleague, and he's taking his time now to share with you not only his perspective on his career journey and how he ended up in this industry, but really he's at the cutting edge of those new companies that are emerging on the private sector side. So with that, I'm off to you.
Okay, thanks, Margaret. And thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. Great seeing everybody's bright, shiny faces this morning. Excellent. I'm going to bring you sort of from the general to the specific. So I'm going to talk about my why and why I did the things I did through my career. And then I'm going to talk about more specifically the final part of my career, which has been pivoting over to the outdoor hospitality sector. And then, as Margaret said, I'm going to do a little exercise on sort of finding your why, or helping you find your why, hopefully. And so before I do that, though, I want to talk about some definitions, because it's going to help as I go through the sort of the presentation. And the definitions I'm going to talk about is travel and tourism, hotel business, and hospitality. I make a distinction because it meant a lot through my career. Travel and tourism, I looked at it as really kind of two things. One, travel being people going from place to place, and that, whether it's for business or whatever reason they need to travel, and the tourism part really being a key economic export for a town, a city, a state, a country, whatever it might be. And so in my early career, I really, really wanted to be a part of travel and tourism. I wanted everybody to travel to different countries and understand different cultures, and maybe we'd stop shooting each other. That didn't really work out. We're still shooting each other, which sucks. But I wanted to be a part of that and hopefully kind of move the ball forward, that if we understood different cultures and how we could get along. And that was kind of my very altruistic point of view early in my career. And it is a really important export for a lot of countries as well. And there's a lot of jobs that work in and around travel and tourism. I used an example earlier of Singapore, small country, little island state, 3 million people in it. They really don't have any natural resources. They don't even have fresh water, but they do have people, and they do have a very eclectic group of people, and they have great food, and they are right at the crossroads of the Straits of Singapore. And so people have to go there. So that's why you find their airport, Changi Airport, is probably one of the best in the world, because they're all about people transiting through there. And so they do a lot of work on making sure that tourism product is great. People love to visit Singapore, and there's other places around the world. And in my early career really dealt with a lot of that. Then the hotel business. I look at the hotel business as you see hotels, Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton. There's names that you see all the time as you drive around. Those companies actually don't own those buildings typically. They don't even manage the business that's in that building. They primarily here are franchising. So there'll be an independent management company that'll manage that property, as you probably know, according to the franchise or the brand standards of that. I see the hotel business as that. Oh, sorry, I was asking for something. And where you come up with a niche, a brand that fits a particular segment, whether it's extended stay or limited service, or maybe someone who's willing to pay between $200 and $300, but they want it to look cool. You come up with a brand, or you buy a brand that's fitting that niche, and then you expand that. You get other people to buy and build that brand, and hopefully fill that that business in all the parts of the world if you can. I contrast that, the hotel business of coming up with brands that work for people in different niches, to the hospitality industry. I look at the hospitality industry as really the industry about taking care of people. I use Disney as a great example of a company that really does the hospitality business really well. They has everybody been to Disney? Has anybody been here? Mostly? Okay. And you know the sign on the front of when you walk in there, what does it say? It says, what's their logo? What's their slogan? Anybody? They hear happiest place on earth, right? I mean, that's a big ask, right? To say that, like, we're the happiest place on earth. And when I was growing up, we couldn't afford to go to Disneyland. We couldn't even go to the local park around that was near there's a water park or amusement park near my house. We couldn't afford to go there. So when I finally could afford to go to Disneyland, I was really excited. And one of the things that I thought was amazing about Disneyland is that even if you are there and you see that a guy's like cleaning up cigarette butts and trash around there, he's in a white suit with a belt on with all these tools. And if you ask him for directions or you need some help, he's going to immediately say, "Welcome to Disney. How can I help you?" And he's going to have a map for you and direct you to where you need to go. And the same is going to happen, whether it's the front desk clerk or the lady giving you lemonade or a ride person, whatever they're going to do. They're all on the same page. They're there to help you. They're there to make sure that you're going to have the happiest time while you're there. And it's pretty amazing. So to me, that's kind of hospitality, and that's kind of the world I wanted to get into, and I couldn't be in travel and tourism. And so that's my distinctions: travel and tourism, hotel business, and then hospitality. And I'll just start. Oh, I keep doing that. I'll kind of go through my career progression so you kind of understand where I got to from here. Quite humble beginnings. I worked as a kid in a camp doing as a dishwasher in a camp, and then I was a dishwasher at a Chinese restaurant. Then I was a busboy in a Holiday Inn, and then I became a bar back in the bar of the Holiday Inn. Then I became a porter in the hotel. And by the time I got out of undergrad, I did get a job operating a beverage department in a big resort. I had 30 employees. I was 23 years old. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but eventually figured it out. And then I got to go to grad school. Went to grad school. I got out of grad school, and everybody that I was competing with for jobs had probably 4 or 5 years of real experience in an industry, whether it's advertising, finance, or whatever. And the only thing I had on my sort of career track to date was that I'd worked in hotels and restaurants and bars, and I understood that. So I felt that when I was going into an interview, at least I had some concrete, fundamental understanding of the industry in hotels. I got a job consulting in San Diego with a company called Laventhal and Horwath, and that then led me to a job with the same company, but in Hong Kong. And I did feasibility studies and market studies, business analysis for hotels and tourism all over Asia. And then I did that for a while. And then Marriott picked me up to be an in-house analyst. So I did financial analysis and pro formas and market studies in-house for Marriott. I was actually the third guy in Marriott corporate in Asia. And then at the time, if you had that kind of experience, then other companies would want you to come on and be part of the development team to grow their brands. And so I did that. I went to Westin, moved down to Singapore, and worked at Westin growing their brands. And I did their first Westin in Australia, in Sydney, and then in Melbourne. And then I did the first W outside of the United States. And when I say I did them, there was people building a hotel, and they needed a management company. So I went in and pitched my brand against Hyatt, against Hilton, against Marriott, all the other brands were there, and tried to get them to select my company as the management company. And then I negotiated the management contracts for those properties. So I continued doing that through my career. Eventually with Westin became Starwood. And then I ended up working with Intercontinental Hotels, doing Intercontinental and Holiday Inn and Crowne Plaza and all their brands. They didn't have 30 brands back then. They only had 4 or 5. And then then in 2010, after the global financial crisis of 2008, which was very early in your lives, I decided I wanted to be back in the United States. I wanted to be closer to my parents who were getting elderly, and I wanted my kids to go to college here in the U.S. because it's a very unique. This whole thing you're doing right here, you're with the Broncos and all the things that you do in college here in the U.S. It's nowhere else in the world. They really don't do college anywhere in the world like here. It's very cool. And I wanted my kids to be able to experience that. So I moved back, huge pay cut, but came back to the US in 2010 and continued doing the same thing. So I was more buying hotels for Pan Pacific Hotels was a brand, but it was owned by United Overseas Bank of Singapore. And did that for a while, and eventually got a job with a company called Commune Hotels and Resorts. Commune Hotels and Resorts had a number of very cool brands. They had Thompson, it had Joie de Vivre, it had Alila, Destination, Tommy, and these were lifestyle boutique brands, kind of like W, only a little grittier than W. And I eventually was running a team of people doing that work. So if hotels were being built and developed or being purchased and repositioned, my team was out trying to pitch our brands for those properties and then signing those management contracts or leases in some cases, or I was buying the hotel on behalf of the company. Then that company got purchased by Hyatt Hotels and Resorts. So all those brands now are under the Hyatt sort of world. And I took some time at that point to I wanted to retire a little bit because I felt like I'd been doing since I was in about 5th grade. And I wanted to just be for a while and just kind of experience the world and take care of myself a little bit. So I started I was going to retire I thought I'd take a year off. It ended up being about 5 months. At the time, I was providing some pro bono, some free consulting to AutoCamp. Does anybody know AutoCamp, the brand at all? Anything?
You should, because it was part of your homework assignment. Okay, just tracking that everybody
Anyway,
recognizes
so-
the name, where the dots are starting to be connected. Right?
AutoCamp is a first mover in the outdoor hospitality sector, glamping, if you will, Airstream based campgrounds. And I was providing consulting on them because the people that were investing in them were concerned that they weren't growing fast enough. And I spent my entire career growing brands in the hotel sector. And so the guy that invested the money and said, hey, can you come help the CEO grow faster? And so I was doing that for free because it's a friend of mine. And then eventually AutoCamp said,
why did you say yes to that opportunity? What was it about that product that intrigued you?
Well, I'd always been sort of an outdoorsman myself, camping, hunting, fishing, doing all the things that you do in the outdoors. So when I was a child, we would drive down the road and we'd see an Airstream go by. And my dad and my mom would say, that's an Airstream. It's really expensive. We can't afford it. Don't think about it. And so I was like, well, that's a really cool thing. And these guys were taking Airstreams and making whole campgrounds around them. So I was like, this is, wow, I want to be involved in this in some way, shape, or form. So I said, yes, I'll do it for free. And then they asked me to join them. Can you just join us and help us grow more? And so I did that and really kind of looked at their business and what they were all about, what their brand promise was and what was working. Why were they growing so slow? And what's going on in outdoor hospitality? So I studied the market and tried to understand what different areas are of outdoor hospitality and how could AutoCamp penetrate not just that one sector of AutoCamp, but how could they do other things in the same outdoor hospitality world? And I kind of fell in love with the sector. I was like, wow, this is really great. And that's going to bring me to the next sort of program here where I really was enamored with it. And I was like, this is really cool. Well, then pandemic came along and this was a very young company, a lot of millennials running it. And everybody with gray hair advising them was sort of shown the door when the pandemic came along. And so I said, no problem, be my first client. And they were my first client. So I said, I'll still help you to grow because I believe in the brand. I believe in your company. And so I'll still help you grow. And if I do that, then you can pay me on success. But I'm going to talk to the other brands that are doing it as well. So I started doing consulting to other brands that wanted to grow and other site owners that wanted to build outdoor hospitality and other investors that wanted to invest in outdoor hospitality. So that brings me to where I'm at right now. There. So now up until that point, my why had originally been, I want to help travel and tourism. That didn't pay as well as I wanted to pay. Actually, and I was married and had 3 kids. So I had 5 mouths to feed. And I was like, I need a little more money. And so the hotel business pays a lot more. So I went to work for them. And then having gone all through that, I got to the end of that when I was kind of done with Commune, and the opportunity to work with AutoCamp was there. And I started realizing that what was happening, I'd see my son take his phone and go in his room and just be like a mushroom, just not interacting with people and just on his phone or gaming or whatever. And I was like, these things are great. There's a ton of information. They're really amazing, but they're really limiting interactions between people. So I wanted to be a part of some movement that would maybe create some time and some space and some opportunity for kids mainly to put these down and sit by a campfire or walk through the woods, and okay, they can take their Instagram shot or whatever, but at least there's some time where maybe they don't have connectivity and they can sit down around a campfire and have that warm glow and just talk about stuff as opposed to being tied to technology. So this became my new why, was to get people away from these as much as possible, if possible. So I'm going to talk to you about why outdoor hospitality and why I felt there was more to it than just that. And then the current market and the players that are in there. And then I'll talk a little bit about my practice and what my work entails. Okay. So I believe in the outdoor hospitality sector because I believe that humans innately want balance. They seek balance. The body wants balance. And where we are right now in life is there's a lot of technology. There's a ton of technology, and it's changing every day, and it's changing really fast. Technology's already changed a ton of times in your own lifestyles, right? And what's happened in your lifetimes, and it's changed a ton in mine as well. And there needs to be a balance. The balance is usually high tech and high touch. It's why you'll see sometimes people will come up with a computer or something with a phone, and they'll put wood around it, or they'll put leather around it, and it'll touch differently, right, than just plastic or something hard. And that's it. Your body literally wants to feel earth. It wants to touch something that isn't just this light screen coming at you. And so I think that will continue. I think the technology will continue to change, and that change is going to be rapid, and that the body and all of us are going to want to have more touch to balance that out. And you're seeing that happening, and we're seeing it happening in the amount of visitors to national parks, and the amount of sales of RVs, the amount of tent sales. REI is a much bigger company than it was 5 years ago, because people want to get more touch, and it's important to them. Also, the fast pace of technology makes you think fast. It makes you act fast. It makes everything go faster. They used to complain about my generation wanting immediate satisfaction. You don't want to have a great long meal. You want a fast meal. You want fast food. You want to order it. You want to get it. And that is getting even more faster. And as everything that you deal with gives you immediate gratification, you want more of it. And so, again, to seek balance, you have to slow down. And when you go outside and you sit in nature, and you just stand around, just go on a hillside or next to a river or whatever, and sit down, you'll realize that everything in nature moves way slower. The leaves don't turn overnight, right? The river flows, but it goes for a long time before it reaches the ocean. Long time, takes a long time. And everything happens in nature really, really slowly compared to your own life. And so that's why you need that slowdown. And it's almost now, when you think about it, just slow down and just go sit somewhere in the woods and not have your phone and just be somewhere. It's almost like a luxury. Like, how'd you get the time to do that? That's amazing. You did what? You just went for a walk for hours and hours, and did you talk to anybody? Were you on the phone? No. Just so it's really important, and I think that will continue. And experiences have been growing in terms of an aspirational thing for a long time. 20, 30 years ago, when we were doing 5-star hotels, we would be telling people that yes, the room needs to be lovely, and it needs to be marble and brass, and it needs to have great service and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, when people go home, they don't talk about that. They don't tell people what they did. They don't say, oh, we stayed at this hotel and it had a really beautiful carpet. No, they talk about, we went to this amazing restaurant that had this interesting pouring wine that flew through the air, or they talk about some wacko experience that they had, or some unique experience that they had that none of their friends had ever had. And they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And then you feel great. You're like, I had this experience and no one else had. And I explained it to them. And so that gives people aspiration, makes them feel good. So that's not going to change either. And you know that because you look on Instagram and you see what people are doing, and everybody's telling you about, look, I was here by this amazing gorge, or I was over this, I went to Coachella. This is amazing, right? And so people are showing you their experiences. So that's not going to change either. I think that will continue to move forward. And if you can get hospitality out in these places where people want to be and do these things, then I think there's a lot of business there. And luckily, technology is enabling this. 10 years ago, we didn't have the ability to wake up in the morning, I really want to go camping tonight. I want to go camping. There wasn't outdoorsy. You couldn't go online and order a camper van and just do some van life for the weekend. You couldn't do it. Now you can. You couldn't just go, I got this great tent. I never use it. I really want to use it. Where should I go? I don't know. You can go on to Hip Camp right now, and you can find a place an hour from your house, 2 hours from your house, 5 hours from your house, and you can have a place to put your tent that is maybe hopefully a little bit secure, and you can put up your tent and you can camp for a night. And there's digital nomads. There's an ability to work remotely, and you might be on vacation, and you might be out camping somewhere and stop on Sunday and go, I've got really good coverage here. I don't have a Zoom call tomorrow, but even if I did, I could probably fake it that I'm somewhere like near my home, and I'm going to stay an extra night. So you can stay out in nature longer. And this is kind of, again, getting to why I think this is a good sector. And then the environment, different and sustainability. different generations have different things that are important to them. My generation was all about sameness, no surprises. I wanted to go from this town to that town, and I want to stay in a Holiday Inn. I want it to be exactly the same. I want to know what I'm going to get, and I want to be comfortable that every time I move from place to place, I get the same experience, right? The millennials, completely the opposite. They want to go to a place and they want authenticity. If they're going to go to Nashville, they want to make sure that there's music in the room and there's a turntable in the bedroom and there's cool stuff that's all about Nashville. Or if they're going to go to Tokyo, they want to make sure they're in a real Tokyo style hotel. They don't want to stay in a Holiday Inn in Tokyo. It doesn't make sense. So the millennials are really clear about that. They want authenticity wherever they go. They don't want just coffee. They want really good coffee. They want a coffee from the local barista. Your generation, Gen Z, you want all that. And there needs to be a story. Was this organically raised? Did this come from a single source in Guatemala? Did this help the farmer in that particular community? How did this help the earth? Did it have to go on a ship? I don't want to go on a ship. I want to come from this hemisphere. So it didn't hurt the ocean, right? That's your generation, which is awesome. So I think that also feeds to outdoor hospitality, because you can do hospitality very light on the earth. You can put up a tent and then run that business for 5 or 6 years, pull that tent down, and Mother Nature will take it right back, and nobody will know it was even there. So that's kind of why I like this sector and why I kind of pivoted my entire career over to it. Okay, so how big is the industry? It's a several billion-dollar industry, and the issue around the industry is that it's really growing. It was growing prior to the pandemic. We saw the numbers in terms of how many people were doing things outside, how many people were camping, how many people were staying in a glamping kind of a thing. It grew and grew and grew. Then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden it all shut down for a little while. And then everybody realized, actually, outdoors is really safe. We want to be outside. We want that fresh air. And then it just took off like crazy. And RV sales went up, and all these brands started coming around in relation to glamping. And so the growth in the sector is still strong, and the amount of demand, the amount of people that want to go outside and they want to do some camping is still way greater than the amount of supply. There's some things that are helping that supply. There's the online travel agents like HipCamp or the Dirt or Rec.gov. They're out there that are allowing people to get that supply out to people on a individual basis, but generally the supply is still way below where the demand is. Right. So who are the players in the industry? Who makes up this thing called the outdoor hospitality industry? The first thing which is really important is the first mover investors, right? I was talking a little bit earlier about the lifestyle boutique independent hotels like Thompson or W, or those cool hotels that were really starting to provide some authenticity to millennials. The people that did that, Barry Sternlicht, Chip Connolly, Andre Balaz, there's a number of these names that started the brands that you know out there, W, Thompson, Huxton, Ace, the guys that came up with those concepts that really were playing to a millennial segment, that each property didn't have to look the same. In fact, they had to be completely different. Those same guys that invested in that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they're investing now in AutoCamp, Getaway, Collective Retreats, Under Canvas, all of the brands that I think you saw a couple of them. Those guys are now in this sector, and they're the same guys that started the whole movement of that other type of hotels. And so there's brands and there's operators, owners, and developers that are all in this sector. I break down the people that are making the supply into these sort of 4 groups here, or 5 groups, sorry. One is independent lifestyle operators. So these are people that are they've got some land, they got a farm, they got a winery, and they want to do some accommodation. So they'll go and they'll buy a tent, or they'll buy a vintage travel trailer. They'll put it on their property, they'll deck it out, they'll make it nice, and they'll put it on HipCamp or the Dirt or Airbnb or whatever. There's hundreds of thousands of them all over the country. And I can tell you, the US is way behind. In the UK, they're everywhere. People had a lot of land, not a lot of money, and this provides a great way to get some passive income. And then RV parks across the country. I think you guys went to one. they're all wrestling right now with how much accommodation they should put on the property. So you've got a site where people can pull in and pull out their travel trailer or their RV, but how many cabins should they put there? How many yurts? How many tents? How many should they put there to provide accommodation? And that accommodation is hotel business. It's competing with the local hotel market. It's not just part of our RV camp. It's alternative accommodation in that marketplace. So they're all trying to figure out right now, what's the number? If we have 100 sites, should we get 30 tents? If there's 150 sites, should we get 80 tents? What's the number to get that balance right? And then there's glamping brands like the one I just mentioned before, AutoCam, under Canvas. And these brands really are designed to bring nature to the nature curious, to make nature more approachable. So you don't have to put up a tent. The tent's already there. You don't have to sleep on the floor. You got a beautiful bed you can sleep in. And then there's repurposed motels. Lodge camps, I think, is one on your list that you had. There's also base camp. There's a Field and Stream, which is Barry Sternlicht, who started W Hotels. And there's a Field Station, which is AutoCamp's sub-brand. So these are where you take an old motel and you sort of re-cosmetically change it to appeal to an outdoorsy clientele. So people that love to ski, mountain bike, hike, backpack, whatever they want to do, this is going to look, act, and feel like they would want it to be. And I can talk about that a little bit later. And then there's existing luxury resorts. So you have amazing resorts like Amangiri in southern Utah, Four Seasons in Punta Mita in Mexico, and they literally tack on 10, 15, 20 safari tents, and they'll sell that as a separate product at the same resorts. They don't have to build any new infrastructure apart from those tents, and they'll pair that up with some wellness. They'll make the tents will be designed biolithically so that that's all in tune with nature, and they'll sell that as a separate package. There's one, the one at Amangiri in southern Utah. The hotel rooms there go for $2,000 a night, and the tents go for $4,000 a night, and they're booked 6 months in advance. So it's a very lucrative part of the industry. As I mentioned, there's OTAs, online travel agents, that are specifically for outdoors. Glamping Hub is one. I mentioned HipGap before. And then there's traditional hotel service providers that work in the industry as well. So you might be an architect and you've always done amazing resorts and hotels, and that's your sort of niche in your architecture. You might now add an outdoor division that only does outdoor hospitality, and that's happening in the marketplace right now. And the same with brokers that used to sell hotels or motels. Now they'll add an outdoor sector, and they'll sell RV parks, and they'll sell campgrounds. And consultants like me, I focused primarily on the outdoor hospitality sector. And then there's interior designers, again, that normally would do just inside the hotel or residences or whatever, and they'll morph their business to be not only inside but indoor outdoor. So doing stuff outdoors as well, but using all their knowledge and understanding of interior design, but pushing it out on deck or out in the lawn or whatever.
I'm going to connect the dots here. If you remember your very first assignment, which was come join the outdoor hospitality industry, and remember there was all those columns. You know, far right column was the private sector hotel developer. There was product providers. There was technology providers. There was outfitters and guides, public agencies, private companies on public land. That was a physical manifestation of what he's saying right here. So I think the important thing to realize here is, let's say you start in working in either a private or a privately managed on public land, and you're really passionate about it. Literally, you can go through and potentially have a career in this industry, just moving through these different subsectors of the industry. And that's really, I think, important for you to understand. And a lot of these things did not exist literally before you came to college. And literally they continue. It's an industry that's growing. So I just want to put that dot together. Connect those dots.
Is there any questions about any of that? Well, I've got a few minutes here, because that's a lot of stuff. Okay. Then I must have explained it really well, I guess. So should we do the?
Yeah.
Okay. So did anybody pick? I'll wind up with AutoCAD, but that was one of the selections.
Okay.
Right?
Load.
Okay, lodge.
Lodge.
So lodge camps. Did
Who
anybody
chose
pick
lodge camp
lodge
to
camps?
do the assignment on? Okay.
Yep. Oh,
Who
you,
wants to
you pass out.
describe how they define lodge camp in their own words? You want to do it? Yeah, okay.
Well, I picked off how I liked the website, and they just had the most appealing website to me, which is why I picked it. But the way I would describe it, they have many, I guess, places you can go to within like across the country where they set up like the revamped motels where you can go depending upon how you want to experience the outdoors, because some of them are just like kind of spa like, some of them are like for actual go-getters, and they have skiing, they have different places you can go depending upon how you want to experience the outdoors. Yeah, that's how I just defined it. And the prices are they're pretty good. I went and tried to buy one, and like I was looking, and they have pretty good prices. So that's how I define it.
Yeah,
No, I did not.
that's perfect. So that's actually great. It's a genre that was started out by a company. I think it was at South Lake Tahoe was their first one, and it was a company that just thought that they could reimagine. Base Camp was the original one. And they thought they could reimagine how you did motels, and it made them a little bit more approachable by people that want to do outdoorsy stuff, mountain bikers, skiers, hikers, and things like that, and a little bit younger. And so getting to those elements that I talked about before, they had, instead of just having a boring front desk with, somebody sitting behind there, they blew that out and they made a barista spot so you can get really good coffee, and they put a couple taps in there for beers, and they run movies in that same space that are like, X Games stuff, sort of extreme sport stuff. And then they started that, and then lodge camps came along and said, yeah, we get that. They started doing as well, but they lifted it even higher. They put in the rooms the types of products that those guests are comfortable with. So there's a Yeti cooler, there's a Rumple puffy blanket, there's a hammock that they hang right over the bed. And if you want to use any of these products, you can use them. If you want to take them out, take the Yeti with you, fill it up, go out and do your activities, whatever you're going to do, no problem. Bring it back, no problem. If you want to take it with you and like own it and keep it, no problem. They'll charge it to your room and off you go. They also do a lot of programming locally to that same market. So they'll do some indie bands, concerts. They have a little pavilion of some sort, and they'll be programming. So they're constantly sort of selling the lifestyle. They'll rent you mountain bikes, they'll rent you snowshoes, they'll rent you all the equipment you need to do all that. So they really take kind of to the next level, but they're selling the lifestyle, an outdoorsy lifestyle, in the context of the accommodation. Yeah.
Okay, who chose Under Canvas? Anybody choose Under Canvas? Oh, come on. I know 30%.
Over here,
Yeah, okay.
Sorry about that.
I know somebody did. I've seen the results. Do you want to describe what you thought Under Canvas was?
Under Canvas looked like a very luxury way of like camping. That's how I kind of saw it. It was like nice little camp areas, but you're still like out in nature. You're not like in tent on the ground.
Perfect. Yes, that's exactly their spiel, is that it's glamorous camping, and you are out in nature. They have very much a national park approach to where they want to grow. Lodge camps will go wherever there's a motel that has some outdoorsy stuff. They don't have to be next to a national park. But Under Canvas, on the other hand, they typically go to a national park where there's already a ton of demand, and they'll put that property there. They also lease their property. They don't buy the property and then develop it. They'll just lease the land. They'll come in and they'll put the tents on there. They do a minimum of about 50 tents. And I got to tell you, it's for some people that are on the outdoors all the time, it's no big deal. You go, it's nice. You get a nice bed, beautiful bed. You're safe and you're comfortable and you don't mind. You got to go outside to go to the bathroom at a central toilet block, no problem. But for some people that have never done anything in the outdoors, it is crazy extreme adventure, right? Because they realize that the barrier between them and the hostilities of nature is canvas. It's like thinner than your clothes, and that's the only wall between you and an environment they're not used to. They're really uncomfortable in that environment. So it's for a lot of people, it's a big deal that we went to Grand Canyon and we hiked around the Grand Canyon. Then we came back and we're still outside and we slept in a tent and we could hear bugs and we could hear animals and we could hear people moving around. In the morning, the sun came up, it got hot in the tent and whoa, this is like crazy stuff. And it really makes amazing memories for people. And that can be expensive in the off season, not so expensive. I paid, I think $140 one time to stay there. And then I've seen it for $450, the same experience. That's great. It's a unique concept.
Okay, how about auto camp? You want to do the auto? Okay, well, let's get two perspectives on this, okay?
Okay.
Why don't you give us your perspective and we'll give it to him.
I chose that one just because it looked the most luxurious and modern, and at the same time, like very comforting. And there was just a lot of activities around there.
Okay, that's
Good.
Interesting adjectives.
So I described it as it is a place that you can go to live for a few days near an outdoor environment like Yosemite or their other options. They provide a space for you to host events like weddings or small get-togethers while also providing you with food options so that you don't need to worry about anything. I chose it because it just spoke to me like their design and the way that their design catered to the outdoor environment, but also in a quote unquote luxurious way.
Anybody else chose auto camp? Okay, hold on.
I chose auto camp because I looked at all of them and they all had like the trailer camping type style. But auto camp also gave you where you could do team building to me. Like some of the areas had stationary tiny home type styles. And then some of them had like the family go out and camp type. And really that would be like awesome to do on my grandma's property in Tennessee. So I was like, I wonder how I can do this. It just gave me the ideal to think outside the box once again about hospitality and where you can go with it.
I think we have a hip camp customer here. We'll talk about that. But
Sure.
I think the reason we wanted to ask this question of you is each of you, if you listen to each other, said some of the similar things, but you each had a perspective that you thought the website talked about. We heard about, you got a great idea about how to do something individually. You talked about groups and weddings and then you talked about the nature of what the experience was like. And those are the things that sort of what are they selling actually helps fill the rooms. So anyways, you have a deep relationship with them, so you can talk more about
I
that.
definitely do, but I want to address all three of those things. They're very interesting. So the first one in terms of luxurious sort of experience, and that's exactly it. It's designed to be a nature that's approachable. So yes, you're gonna deal with bugs and noises and things like that, but and you can have an outside little campfire. You'll have one big communal one. You'll have a little one next to your Airstream. But then at night, when you go inside to your Airstream, you're going to shut that door, and it's literally like an airplane, right? It's designed after an airplane, so you're going to shut that door, and all of a sudden the creepy crawlies aren't going to come in, and you're not going to hear the crickets as much, and you're going to go into a Swedish mid-modern designed hotel room with a glass and marble bathroom and a 1,000 thread count sheet bed. And you're going to be like, wow, okay, I can camp. I can totally camp. I can do this. I am a camper. I will camp now because it's so comfortable. And in the morning, the sun will be out. You walk out. And you're like, oh, wow. I go have a lovely cup of coffee at the clubhouse. And the clubhouse is all mountain modern, mid-century designed, ultimate design. And you're like, okay, I get this. I can do this. And there's a lot of price value. Even if you paid $400, $500 a night, but you're like, yeah, but it was like a luxury suite in the middle of the outdoors. And today I'm going to go hike in Yosemite, or I'm going to, go do Joshua Tree or whatever. I mean, this is powerful stuff. And then the interesting thing that you mentioned about the group event thing, that is something that is really interesting because with all of this product, most of this product that we have in outdoor hospitality, there's going to be seasonality. There's going to be weekday, weekend differences, but there might be some really bad off seasons, or there might be some shoulder seasons where you don't have as much business. And the only way to augment that business is through groups, and groups love it. whether it's a wedding or it's a reunion or a corporate group. We had at Auto Camp in Yosemite, which is close to San Francisco Bay Area, one very slow weekend, like in October, late October. We really hadn't much on the books, and Uber called up because Uber or Google called up and they said, "Hey, we got like $120,000 in our employee appreciation fund. Can we just take the whole place for the next 2 nights?" And we were like, "Totally, yeah, you can have that. Please come." And so they bought out the whole place. It was a buyout, and they just gave us all the money, and we put them up, and it was fabulous. It was a great thing. And in fact, then we started looking at groups, particularly corporate groups, a little bit different. We started designing the properties different, because I'm not sure if you've ever been at a resort where there might be a big group and then you're just there with a friend or your family or whatever, and like the group just takes it over. Like they got the bar, they got the campfire, they got everything, and it's really great for the group and horrible for you. So we started designing the properties so that we could do groups of 20 or 30 people in different areas, and they wouldn't take over the whole thing.
And if you remember, Shane talked about that last week. He talked about how we have a group event and then we have to put it in a certain place so it doesn't bother the other people in the campground. So that's you've actually learned and seen and talked about that specifically last week.
And I'm totally happy you talked about you thought about was your grandmother's place in Tennessee? So you can go year round in Tennessee, which is nice. And you do have the Great Smoky Mountains down in the south there, and Pigeon Forge and all these places over there. It's great you're thinking about that, because that's also part of it. Because when you think about outdoor hospitality and you do have somebody that has some property, you see some property and you're like, wow, that'd be cool to stay there. There's another brand called Tenter out there, and Tenter, that's how that brand came about. A guy went to go glamping in New Jersey, and he went there, and there was a witches conference happening at the glamping place he was at, and he and his wife didn't want to be with all these witches and warlocks, dancing and hooping and going crazy around the campfire all night. He's like, this is really not good for me and my young kids. This is crazy. So he left and he stayed in a motel on the way back to his home in New Jersey. And he looked out the window, and there was a farm out there with this tree line, this amazing field, and then this, river running by it. He goes, I want to stay there. That's where I want to be, without the witches and warlocks going crazy, but I want to be out there. And so he came up with a brand that he could Tenter, where you could sell a tented experience to that farmer. So you go to that farmer and say, hey, people would like to stay on your farm. Give me $15,000 and we will bring in a tent and the toilet and the shower and the deck and the chairs and the bed and the bedding, and you can run that business through our website. So that's interesting you brought that up, because that's kind of part of the industry as well. Just quickly, the Getaway one, kind of getting back to the group issue. Getaway started out their brand with a very simple brand promise. And the brand promise was, you're going to be 2 hours from your boring apartment in the city or wherever you live. You're going to be 2 hours from there. You're going to be in nature, and you're going to commune with nature. And you're going to be in a cute little funky tiny house, and you're going to commune with whoever you're in there with. It might be just you and the trees, or it might be you and your partner or your kids or whatever. That was it. You, 2 hours from your house, nature, and whoever you're with. They didn't have a group concept. So you book it, and you get an entry code, and you go to your unit in the woods, and you put in the code, and you're in your room, and that's it. End of story. That's all you get. And they found out over time that in those slow seasons, they were dying. No one was going there. So they started to hire group salespeople to come and try and help their group sales, but they had no facilities for it. So that they've got to change their design now to actually provide central communal fire pit area, maybe an event lawn, maybe a check-in, check-out, somewhere that people can kind of get together and commune with each other. All the other brands say, yep, you're going to be near a national park, or you're going to be 3 to 5 hours from your house, and you're going to commune with nature, and you're going to commune with who you're with. And you're going to sit around a campfire, a big communal campfire, and you're going to commune with other people that don't look like you, other people that don't come from the same economic atmosphere and where your background is, and you're going to be there. We're gonna make it so that's the only place you can commune together. And early in the piece, when I was studying the sector, I was really worried about that. There was a property in Bend, Oregon, and it had these RV spots, and it had these $200,000 vintage trailers, And the hipsters would come and pay $400 a night for these vintage trailers. And then there'd be people that are paying $40 a night to bring their trailer in the same place. And literally they had the same communal barbecue, the same communal fireplace. And I was talking to the owner, I'm like, man, how's that going to go? How are these trailer pulling people going to get along with these hipsters that are paying so much money in the same place? And he's like, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And then he opened it up and we got together 6 months later and said, how's it happening? How's everybody getting together? And he's like, oh my God, I feel like such an idiot. And I was like, yeah, me too. Why? And he says, because everybody gets along. Everybody's fine. There's no problem. They get around the campfire, they get around the barbecue, and the conversation is, which trail did you go on today? Did you go skiing? Which trail on the ski hill did you like? Which did you mountain bike? I mountain bike too. How did you? And the conversation is amazing. And there's this great melding of people. There's this situation, and maybe some of you experienced, maybe you haven't, but you should, which is around a campfire. And my corny saying is, around the campfire, the glow of that campfire accentuates all our similarities. We all have noses and eyes and mouths and hair. And the heat of that campfire melts away our differences, because you want that heat, and everybody wants that same heat. There's another thing about campfires I'll tell you real quickly, is that when you design a campfire for other people, everybody else, a big communal campfire, you have to do it with a circular campfire, but square seating around it. And the reason is that when you're a kid, you see a campfire and there's people playing, they might be making s'mores, or they're sticking in the stick in the fire or whatever. And kids just go immediately up to that campfire. They're part of the circle. They're now the cool kids that are playing with fire, and they'll just get right in there, right? But adults, they're not like that. If they see circular seating around a campfire and there's one group of people sitting around the circle around that campfire, they're like, oh, they got the campfire. But if you put it in a square format and somebody's sitting on one side of the square, the kids will go right to the circle. They're right into the fire. Like, and you're like, oh, but if it's a square, you'll go, oh, well, those people have that square over there. We're going to take this square over here. And then all of a sudden there's communication. So it's just human nature stuff. So that's the kind of the different, like I was saying, the other people, the other brands are all about crushing people together, making you commune with other people, because that's kind of our nature too. Nature is, we're not all the same, but we can enjoy nature together, because we all, at some point, we were all walking barefoot. We were all camping at one point together. No matter where you came from, what you look like, we were all camping at one point. So anyway, I'll go to the next one. So my advisory services. So again, my sort of why is I want to get people off of these things. And I saw how slow it took for the lifestyle boutique and independent hotels to grow in acceptance from the financial community, so they could get more supply. I didn't like boring hotels personally. I didn't like it. I like cool hotels. And so I wanted to be a part of that. And I wanted that to go quick, but it took forever for banks to go, I don't know, that sounds kind of like, I don't know, kind of weird. They didn't like new types of product. They weren't sure they were going to work. And so it took a long time for independent luxury lifestyle hotels to really be part of the industry. I wanted outdoor hospitality to go faster. I want more people to go outside. I want more people to experience nature. At AutoCamp, I came up with a goal for the company, was to affect 1 million souls as soon as possible in the outdoors. So get them to go out and touch nature a little bit, and maybe then they'd care about the environment, or they care about getting out more and spending time with their family and friends without having the mobile phones distracting everybody. So what I do is I work with site owners, branded operators, and investors. And for the site owners, I do location analysis. So I'll say, okay, where you want to do a glamping thing or some sort of outdoor hospitality thing, great. Where's your site? How far does it take for people to get there? Because typically in this market, it's a drive-to market. It's not a fly-to market. So, and you want to be kind of 3 to 5 hours from a major demand source. So a metropolitan area, 3 to 5 hours, you can get there in the morning. Hey, we're going to go Friday morning, and by Friday afternoon, you're checking in and you're going. And then you can leave Sunday afternoon and you're back by Sunday night. So that's kind of the radius we like to work in. And then how is your site in that location? Is it super hilly? Is it flat? Is there views? Is there not views? Is it noisy? If you want to do something really outdoors in nature, you don't want to be right next to the highway. It kind of sucks when you're in your tent and all of a sudden you hear a truck go by. And then we do feasibility. Okay, you're going to do this thing. It's great. Is it going to make you any money? will anybody invest in it? Will you be able to get some debt for it? And then we do operator selection. You want to build it, but you don't want it to be part of your lifestyle. Remember, I mentioned the independent lifestyle operators. People got a little bit of, like your grandmother. She's got 4 or 5 tents out the back. Now, does she want to be cleaning the toilets and changing the beds every night? Maybe not. And I say, if you have less than 20 units, it's a lifestyle. You're going to be doing that. You're going to be immersed in that business. But if it's more than 20 units, it starts being a business and you don't really want to be involved in it so much. Well, you might then hire an operator to operate that property for you. So I do a selection process for developers. And then I do investment sourcing. So if you want to do a big project, how do you get that? How do you get the money to go into it if you don't have enough to make it? So I'll help you with the investment package and the equity raise or the debt raise. And then sometimes I do highest and best use. I've done some really weird highest and best use. I don't know why. Some of the people in the consulting industry think I'm the difficult site guy. And so I've worked with farms that are 1,000 acres. I've dealt with a school property that's 700 acres covered under an agricultural easement. They can't do anything on it, but they want to do accommodation. So I do highest and best use sometimes, which is very fun and enjoyable, but not easy. And then I work with branded operators. So like the ones that we were up here before, AutoCamp is still one of my clients. I've worked with Getaway before. Lodge Hotels is one of my clients. And with them, I'm either doing strategic growth, so helping them look to different ways that they can grow or more efficiently they can grow. And then tactical stuff where I'm like, I just found out a project by Glacier National Park. It's this big. I think your brand could go in there, and I try and connect those people. And then investors. Some investors, there's a certain amount of investors out there that want to invest in projects, or they want to invest in a platform. They want to invest in AutoCamp. They want to invest in that. And I'll help those investors and direct their funds, hopefully, to somebody that can do that. And I think that's that.
I think we should do some questions on that and then
Yep.
switch to Ikigai.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a few minutes to do that. Okay. Any questions on any of that? Last
I
stuff from my
told
work?
them this was the kick-ass class for questions.
This is the
okay?
question
I'm
class.
Expecting some questions.
There's no dumb questions.
No, we already, no dumb questions. Curiosity, which is his fit. Okay, Todd, not like I know you've parented many brands, but are there 1 or 2 of these that really speak to you personally in your lifestyle?
Good question. But on account of I'm still an investor in AutoCamp, so that kind of speaks to me because I want it to be really super successful. There's a new one that just came out, which I really like, which is called Campfire Ranch. Campfire Ranch, I think is what it's called. And this is a couple of young guys out of Colorado. And when you're talking about new business or new products, there's the kind of what are you solving for? Like, what's the problem, and what is your brand or your product or your service? What does that fix? And these guys saw a problem that when and these were very sort of backcountry skiers and hikers and campers and rock climbers. They're pretty intense. But what they felt was that when they went out into the world and they went to a National Forest Service or a BLM land property, the campgrounds that they had there, like what Vista would run, and I don't want to take it away from Vista, but it was kind of public property, and
Because it is public property.
yeah, it's public property, and they felt that like the vault toilet, okay, the sites kind of smooched together sometimes. I personally don't have a problem. I've seen some great ones, so I don't have really a problem. But they felt that they wanted to do that public style campground, typically tent only. They like tent only. Could be better if it was privately run. And so they went and they bought a private one, but they set it up like a public one, but they have very strict quality control on the cleanliness of the bathroom. And there's somebody always there. And they're actually active in the activities that are around there, whether it's hiking or rafting or whatever. They're involved locally with the community. And they put the tent spaces really far from each other. And so they've just kind of privatized what would be a public campground. They don't charge a whole lot, much more, and they've got a good website that's their own, and they're growing. So that one's kind of like kind of like, yeah, I get that. It could be better, right? It can always be better. Yep. Let's.
In what ways do you think the indoor hospitality industry could move towards a more outdoor / indoor environment, so that people, when you do go to like a hospitality, like a hotel nearby, they can also experience the indoors? What ways should what do you think you can do to make that easier? I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah, or maybe what is the outdoor hospitality? How is it having an influence on the
Yeah.
not outdoor hospitality? But yeah, that's a great question, and you're kind of seeing it already, and certainly COVID sort of was a big jolt of wind in the sails of that. But when COVID was happening, nobody wanted to get into a conference room or a meeting room. They want to do everything outside, right? We'll go, but we're not going inside. I don't want to put a mask on. I want to be outside or whatever. And so there was a bit of a jolt in that with the convention and meetings hotels, where they're like, okay, we gotta do stuff outside. So they started pushing public space. They always had a little bit, but they really started moving it outside and making so when you're there with a big meeting or event, that your options for doing the event or the meeting or the dinner or the cocktail outside wherever they could. And so I don't think that's going to change. I think that's going to continue. The only thing that's affecting that is the counteraction to that is that because people aren't going into the office, people aren't getting together as much. So the importance of that quarterly meeting or that annual meeting or that monthly thing, that offsite, right, where you're all actually together interacting with each other and understanding who each other is, more than just a Zoom meeting, that's becoming really important. So I think there's been a resurgence of meetings and events at hotels, and now they are unfortunately using the indoor space. But I think the breakouts and the things that you do not on the golf course, right? People are moving away from that. Golf is not very inclusive, right? Not everybody can golf or wants to golf. So doing other things in that area is becoming more unpopular. So that like the ground operators, the people that are doing the rafting or the fly fishing or the hiking or the biking or the guided things, those are all growing like crazy. And so those hotels that don't have that outdoor sort of aspect can now tap into activities for their guests in those markets. I think it's a good question, though. Definitely influencing it.
I have a investment type question.
Okay.
So how would you go about, like, if you have property or land or something, to get into something like this, to do the outdoor glamping camping thing? What would it take to get involved in something like that?
So I think in the interest of time,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to that's a very good question. Yep. He's the right person to ask it.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a break between after this and the U hour. So that's when you're going to get an answer to that question, unless you give a high level one, because I mean, he could go on for an hour on this, and that's the business he's in. But it is free consulting. So yeah, I applaud you for that.
Yeah. I can tell you, if you go online, you go outdoor hospitality feasibility or outdoor hospitality debt, or, go online and kick in a couple of keywords like that. You're going to start to see consultants that can help you. There's one called Glampatect that would help. There's a number of, there's also sources like the American Glamping Association. They've got a whole world of resources you can go to in that genre. Yeah.
And you can corner him after class.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally,
Okay.
no
I think we got to do the last exercise.
Oh, okay, great.
Everybody needs to take out a piece of paper or pull Word up or Google whatever up on their computer, because we're going to write. You're going to do some writing here.
So
or typing. Sorry, I'm old.
Yeah, either way. So what I wanted to do is kind of give you a little tool. This is a Japanese thing called the Ikigai, and it's a Japanese concept around getting you to find meaning in your life, right? And your career obviously will have an effect or be part of that. And so what you do is you, in that number one circle at the top there, you write down what you love. Maybe you love dogs and puppies, or you love, I love woodworking. I love fly fishing. You might have some sort of interest. And if you don't have an interest, ask people about their interests, and maybe you'll pick up an interest. But I'm hoping you have some level of interest somehow, somewhere. That goes into what you love section up at the top. It's very important because it gives you joy, right? Whatever this thing is, it gives you joy, and that's a good thing. So what do you love? And then the second one is, what are you good at? Like, what are you good at? You might be good at finance. You might be good at telling good fashion from bad fashion, good design from bad design. You might be good at whatever it is. What are you good at? You might be good at trivia. You might be good at reading. Right? It doesn't matter. This is all individual. And there's no wrong answer, because it's you about you, and there's only one you. So you write that down, on what you're good at, what you think you're good at. Doesn't really matter if anybody else thinks you're good at it. You think you're good at it. You like it, so you're good at it. And then the third one is, what does the world need? And I like to look at this as, the world could be the world, like everything, aliens included, or it could be your country or your region, or it could be your state, or it could be your city, or it could be your family. What does your world need? And what's going to be your bigger purpose in life? What's going to be the thing you're contributing to that makes humanity and everything better in this world? It's a good thing to think about. And so if there's something that you think the world really needs, cleaner water, better air, it could be anything. Put it down there. And it's something that if you had your chance, and you're somebody who's saying, so what are you doing with your time? You're like, I'm working on this, because I think the world needs this, like my one. People get off this thing. And then the fourth one is, okay, well, what can you get paid for? Right? What will somebody pay you for?
And here's my
Yeah.
public service announcement. Just remember, I can tell you now, I said it on the first day, I will say it again. This major that you're in, if you choose to stay in it, you will get paid for it, because there is an industry, the travel and tourism, the hospitality industry. So that doesn't mean, so I'm just saying that what you can get paid for, know that your degree will serve you in a job that you can get paid for, okay? You might want to change that job, you may want to change that industry, but this is a viable employment sector that people are dedicated to educating you on, so you can get a well-paying job. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So this is kind of a hard one. And for me, like, when I was your age, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to college to figure out what I didn't want to do. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I did love travel, so I wanted to be in that area. That was kind of cool. But there's a lot of things, like I met a guy when I was like 45 years old, and his job was fly fishing photographer. I'm like, that was not on my career choice thing at all. I didn't know that was a thing. And I was so jealous that he'd been doing that all his life. All he does is take pictures of people fly fishing. Oh my God, that'd be so awesome. For me, that'd be great. So at this point in time in your life, you can really think outside of the box here. It's wild how you can think about what people will pay you for based on kind of what you're good at, what you're passionate about, that kind of thing. And if it's something that's going to help the world in some even insignificant way, that's great too. Now, once you sort of hopefully satisfied all of those boxes, that's your ikigai. That's going to give you meaning. And I think as you go through life and you feel unsettled, uncentered, are you happy? I'm kind of happy. I'm all right. I'm not great. You'll find that you're not hitting one of those boxes. You're not doing the things in those boxes. You're not affecting in those. And so this kind of gives you a little self-check. I don't really feel great right now. What's missing? And you look back at your ikigai and you go, I'm not doing that. I'm not involved in that. I'm not helping in this area, whatever. And that hopefully will center you a little bit. The great thing about this is you can do it anytime in your life, and it will change. Most likely, it will change. Your loves and your passions might change. What you really want to do, what you think the world needs might change. What someone's going to pay you for might change dramatically, because now you've got some experience behind you. So going back and doing this every couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, or whatever year, is a really good way to sort of think about particularly when you're doing your job search and what you want to do with your time. Um,
Your closing observations that you shared last time.
okay, try to remember what I said. Oh yeah, so I think that at this stage in your careers or in your life where you're at, you've just been through your childhood. Now you're moving into adulthood, and you're going through college, and then you're going to have a career, hopefully, or you're going to do some work or whatever you're going to do. I want to tell you that everybody's got certain insecurities, anxieties. I certainly didn't think I was smart enough to go to the college that I went to. I was petrified that I wasn't going to do well enough. I was nervous that I got in on a probationary basis to my grad school. I was nervous about the first job that I had. Was I good enough or not? And I used to think just fake it till you make it kind of thing, which is a little bit dangerous, but I did that in some cases. I think you have to believe in yourself. You have to know that you're here, you're at the school, you're learning, you're able to learn. So when you see that job description that comes through, and when people do a job description, when HR does a job description, they ask for like a unicorn that can fly and can sing really good. They ask for everything when they really just need a donkey that can pull a cart or something, right? But they'll ask for the moon. And so when you see that job thing and you go, well, I can definitely do that, and I'm interested in that, but these 8 things, they're never going to select me. Don't worry about that. They're asking for the moon. You can learn stuff. And so go for it. Always just go for it. And ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. People like it. People who are interesting are interested. So be interested. And if there's a job that you think you want, you think you might be able to do, maybe a little nervous about it, don't worry. Go through the interview process. Ask them about it. What about this thing? You asked for this. Tell me how that relates to the job. Or is that the most important thing? What's the most important thing here? And really believe in yourself. You can learn. You're here. You can do it. And I think the one you liked was, and it's okay if you're uncomfortable, right? And it's okay if you've paddled out in your canoe and you can't see land behind you and you can't see land in front of you. Keep going. You're going to hit land eventually, no matter what. So
you may flip over, you may get wet.
Yeah.
Learn how to get out of the situation to get back in, but
keep going. You can't see land, you just keep going. Yeah, just a couple of minutes. Any other questions?
anything else? Questions? Comments? Applause?